morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we are going to be taking a little bit of a look at the very best budget decks coming out of Cosmic Eclipse. When I say budget, I mean they are based around non-GXs, none of those big scary GXs like Reshiram and Zekrom, and they are decks that are not depending on things like multiple Dedenne. Any deck that revolves around many Dedenne, probably not going to be there. Now, of course, you may well end up playing cards like Jirachi, etc. You're never going to get a deck for like $5. However, well, it's going to be very unlikely. These are decks that are not going to break the bank and are going to be a lot cheaper to make than something like your average Pikachu and Zekrom build, for instance. Now, what we've got here is half a dozen non-GXs, and I'm going to start with my favourite, although annoyingly one which probably isn't going to prove to be particularly great. It is Excadrill. Now, I adore Excadrill. Excadrill's got two attacks. Firstly, you can do 120 for a single fighting energy, but you have to discard the top 4 cards of your deck. But if you've got 3 or fewer cards left in your deck, you do 180. And being a fighting Pokemon, you can use Diancie Prism Star to do a bit of extra damage. You can use Martial Arts Dojo to do a bit of extra damage. You can even use Karate Belt if you're behind on prizes, so that you don't even have to pay the attack cost. It all sounds so wonderful. So what's the problem? Well, the problem very simply is that when this deck is at its best, you've got 3 or fewer cards remaining in your deck. And the vast majority of Mewtwo and Mew decks at the moment are playing Macago so that they can copy the GX attack, and copying the GX attack will mean that they discard the top 5 cards of your deck and you deck out and lose. Similarly, Belelba and Bryson Man is coming in Cosmic Eclipse, and that forces both players to discard the top 3 cards of their deck, which again will mean that they just deck you out. And with those 2 cards probably being widely played, I don't think we're in a favourable position for Excadrill, which is sad because Excadrill has actually seen a bunch of success over in Japan. Our friend Antoine Boulet just did very well with it this past weekend. But I feel like the format might be a bit too hostile. Watch out, because if Macago and Belelba and Bryson Man are not seeing a lot of play, this could be a real contender. Another card I like very much indeed, which will be its own deck, is the new Steelix. Now, Steelix has 1 attack, really, that we care about at least. For 2 colourless energy, but bear in mind we have triple acceleration energy at the moment, and you can always play it with Welder and fire energy. We've lost double colourless, but especially for stage 1 Pokemon, it really doesn't matter. Those 2 cards, by which I mean triple acceleration energy and Welder, will cover us quite nicely indeed. And you can discard as many Pokemon from your hand as you like, with a retreat cost of exactly 4, and you get to do 50 damage for each one that you've discarded. Yeah, that's pretty gosh darn fun, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, one of the things that I adore about this is that you can actually use Pokemaniac here to search out your Pokemon with a retreat cost of 4. And that actually is going to give you that extra consistency that you're not necessarily going to have in every non-GX deck at the moment. GX decks can use stuff like Cherish Ball, and now they can use Tag Call if they're a tag team deck. Non-GXs don't have those same advantages, but being able to use Pokemaniac really is going to give you a huge boost here. And of course, you're hitting weakness against Gardevoir and Sylveon, which is one of the better decks in the format, and you've got an awful lot of potential here. And of course, you can play it with literally any Pokemon you like, as long as it's got a retreat cost of 4. Might I suggest Licky Licky? Also, as a side note, right, we've actually got a Lickitung, which I like very much indeed. The Lickitung's got a brilliant attack that draws 1 card for each of your Pokemon in play with a retreat cost of exactly 4, while having a retreat cost of 4. So if you get a bunch of Onix, etc. out on the bench nice and early, you can be drawing a whole bunch of cards, and it's going to be rather beautiful indeed. Another card which looks too awkward to work, but again, all of these have been winning over in Japan. I will link you, incidentally, to videos in the description. I will link you to videos showing winning deck lists for all of these decks. So if you want a starting point, you can head on over there. Golurk. You see, Golurk, again, it's a stage 1. It attacks for 2 colorless energy, so triple acceleration energy will be fine. But I don't suggest you use Welder here. Incidentally, whenever you've got 2 colorless energy, do consider Tapu Koko Prism Star. It puts 1 energy lightning from your discard pile onto each of 2 bench Pokemon, which essentially turns them into single energy attackers. And because Golurk is colorless energy, it really doesn't matter. You know, you can use whichever energy you like. 160 damage, just so long as you've got no supporter cards in your discard pile. If you do have any supporter cards in your discard pile, this attack will not work. That's why, incidentally, I don't suggest using Welder. Sure, you can always use stuff like Pal Pad to put them back into your deck, but then you're basically going, well, I'm going to play the supporter, but I'm not allowed to attack until I draw into a Pal Pad. I would say that is, a suboptimal way to be playing. So what you do is you go full item draw. You play stuff like Acrobike, you play stuff like Custom Catcher, you try stuff like Order Pad, and then you play Pokemon, maybe stuff like Zebstrika, maybe stuff like Pidgeotto, anything that lets you draw cards and gives you extra added consistency without having to worry about playing supporters. You're hitting weakness on Mewtwo and Mew, and yes, I know they play Jirachi, but Jirachi's got 160 HP, you hit 160, and you can use Great Catcher now to gust it into the active. I would not be at all worried about Jirachi. It also really helps that you can gust up and get a one-hit KO on Dedenne. Hitting 160 in a format where there's quite a few 2-prize 160 HP Pokemon, yeah, I'm down with that. We can also take a little bit of a look, another card I like quite a lot, Tangrowth. Now, Tangrowth is the most under the radar of these, but I think Tangrowth has a lot of potential, and like I've said, has seen play, has seen success over in Japan. Now, Tangrowth is an awful lot of fun. What it does for 1 grass energy is a base 10 damage, but then it does an extra 30 damage for each energy in your opponent's retreat cost, which can add up quite quickly. But then what you do is you play a whole bunch of the Absol from Team Up. That is the one whereby your opponent's active Pokemon, as long as it is a basic, pays 1 more to retreat. So you're increasing their retreat cost and doing a whole bunch of extra damage by increasing their retreat cost. And while we're increasing retreat cost, might I remind you about Mount Lanakila, which says that the retreat cost of each basic Pokemon in play is 1 more. Now, you are going to come across some non-basic Pokemon, and this is where Tangrowth really falls apart. Both Absol and Mount Lanakila are increasing the retreat cost of basic Pokemon, so as soon as you come across evolved Pokemon, you are potentially running into a bit of an issue. But the format at the moment is Reshiram and Charizard, Mewtwo and Mew, Gardevoir and Sylveon. It is a very, very heavy tag team format. That's not to say there are no evolution decks, but it is to say that evolution decks are very much in the minority. If you are against evolution decks, maybe you need to tech against that. Some people are playing Buzzwole and Pheromosa, that can work. And we do have a second attack here, though it is, well, let's just say underwhelming. Flip 2 coins, 80 damage for each head. It's not the best attack we've ever seen. It's there, but it's not the best attack we've ever seen. It does seem a little bit too reliant on a basic Pokemon meta. So my advice to you, save this when you think there's going to be an awful lot of basic Pokemon. Then you can run along with this and life will be good. Now, probably objectively the best of these, or at least the one that has the greatest chance of actually being successful, is the new Raichu. And essentially, this is the one that tries to make Nuzzle actually work. Now, this new Raichu for 1 colourless energy has Nuzzle, flip a coin if heads the defending Pokemon is paralysed, and for 1 lightning energy has Powerful Spark. This attack does 20 damage for each lightning energy that you have in play. So the goal here is extremely simple. Get a whole bunch of lightning energy in play, and smash. And the way you do this is with the Nuzzle Pokemon. You've got a Mulga that lets you search for any Nuzzle Pokemon. And then you've got Pachirisu, who for 1 energy allows you to, well, it's got an attack that attaches 1 energy from your deck to each of your Pokemon with Nuzzle. And that's largely the deck. You've got extra consistency, because remember, one of the big problems we've got with these non-GX decks is limited Pokemon search. So having a Mulga to search out your Pokemon is a huge advantage. Then you've got Pachirisu to get the energy out. You've got the aforementioned Tapu Koko Prism Star. Now this will do 2 great things. Firstly, it gets 2 extra energy on the field, which is an extra 40 damage. And secondly, it gets off the bench, because you only want to have Nuzzlers on the bench. And again, it's a single prize Pokemon. Being a lightning Pokemon means you get access to Electro Power to do a little bit of extra damage. You can, if you really want, use Thunder Mountain Prism Star to attack for free. But honestly, this is a deck that relies on having a bunch of energy. So, I mean, look, if you use Thunder Mountain, you can at least stash the energy on a bench Pokemon, so having your active KO'd doesn't lose you a bunch of energy. It's a really good deck. You're giving up 1 prize per Pokemon. You've got Pokemon Search. The only real downside is that if you don't get a lot of energy out, it goes very, very rough. And if your opponent starts taking a 2 or 3 prize lead before you've got enough Pokemon actually there rolling with enough energy, it can get a little bit rough. It's not to say it will, just saying there's an option. And then finally, my personal favourite of them, which I do think is phenomenal, the new Alolan Ninetales. And this is one of those decks that you will play without any energy whatsoever. It literally attacks for free. For 0 energy, you do 10 damage for each Pokemon tool in your discard pile. And unlike, for instance, Zoroark with Pokemon in the discard, or Alolan Executor with different types of energy in the discard, there's no upper limit here. In theory, be very difficult to pull off, but in theory you could have like 40, 45, 50 tools in a discard pile and be hitting 400, 450, 500 damage. Again, unlikely, but possible. More realistically, you'll be doing 150 to 200, and the thing that I really like about this is that it opens up the Fairy Charms. Worried about Mewtwo and Mew? Fairy Charm ability. Boom. You're immune. Worried about Reshiram and Zekrom? Boom. Fairy Charm Dragon. Now you're immune. There is no Fairy Charm against Reshiram and Charizard, which does make me a little bit sad. But there's all kinds of other tools you can have a play around with here if you really, really want to. Bit of Choice Helmet to take a little bit of extra damage. Doesn't really matter, right? The options are almost endless. We run into the same option of not necessarily having great Pokemon search. Certainly if we still had Nest Ball and Ultra Ball, I'd like this a lot more. But the fact of the matter is, you're not playing energy. So that means that you can afford to play a lot more cards that are not energy, which means you've got a lot more options. You can play a whole bunch of Fairy Charms to give yourself immunity against pretty much all the best Pokemon in the format. And to be honest with you, when you're talking about a Stage 1 Pokemon that doesn't need any energy, that is just inherently more consistent because there are just fewer things you're looking for. No, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is very, very nice indeed. If you ask me honestly, I'd probably tell you that Raichu is objectively the best of them. But if you ask me for my favourite, it's Alolan Ninetales, hands down. I think this card's phenomenal. But I would very much like to know what you think about these, and which of these are your favourites, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/TheWassy. patreon.com/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.